Now that we have the basics of brushes down, I think it's time to take this a little bit further, and to do that, we are going to be drawing a circle. So to start with, I like to do a little bit of undersketching before I add texture and do some shading and things like that. So I want a pencil. So I'm going to tap on my color first, and I was on green, but I'm going to just pull this down to black because it'll make a nice gray pencil. Then I'm going to tap on my brushes, and I'm going to select technical pencil. Gives me a nice thin line. It's like drawing with a number 2 pencil or something like that. And then on my canvas, I'm just going to draw a circle. Now, I will say ahead of time that I am not the world's greatest sketcher, but I have gotten better drawing a circle over the years. So I'm going to just kind of come in here and draw my circle. And oftentimes when I'm sketching, if one part of my circle or something looks off, I'll just kind of sketch over that again. Part of the reason I'm doing this is because it gives us the opportunity to use yet another tool, and this time we're going to be using our eraser tool. So in the upper right hand corner, I'm going to tap on that eraser, and I'm going to tap on it again. Now when I erase, I often like to have a nice clean line, and the eraser takes on the same principles as the brush we're using. I'm going to tap on Studio Pen, which is in my inking section, and part of the reason I'm doing that is because it gives me a nice crisp erase line that I really like a lot. It's very predictable. And so once I have that set, I'm just going to come into some of those areas, especially along the top, where maybe when I drew my original circle I overshot a little bit. I'm just going to come in here and clean that up a little bit. So that's how I do it. I got lucky this time, and my original circle ended up looking really clean, so I don't have a whole lot to clean up. But I'm going to grab that brush again. Oftentimes, it's probably good to practice your circles, because the first time I draw, my circle might look something like that. Oftentimes, the more you go over a circle, the more circle-like it ends up looking. My circle looked pretty good from the start, so I like that. So what I'm going to do with brushes here is I'm going to show some shading. So this is going to be a sphere, not just a circle. So if you think about a sphere, you have a light source. And I'm going to say right now for this drawing, our light is coming from the upper left-hand corner, which means there's going to be more light coming on our sphere from that angle than there is on the other angle. So we're probably going to have some kind of shadow being cast down here. So I'll go ahead and sketch some kind of shadow in there. And this bottom half of the circle where that shadow is going to be much darker than the area where that arrow is pointing, where the light is coming from, our light source. So now we get to grab a fun texture and start playing with it. I'm going to go ahead and tap on my brush, and from here, I think I'm going to go with my shading graphite, which is in my sketching sections. It's along the bottom there. So from here, let's go ahead and tap on that brush tool again, and let's find something that we can shade with. I like that chalk we were using before, so I'm going to tap on the Bonobo chalk. I also like saying it, and I think that's going to serve us really well. I'm going to start by coming over here to the left-hand side and looking at the size of this. I want a pretty big area. I'm going to be adding layers and layers of chalk. So a big area is good, and I also am going to dial down the opacity quite a bit because I'm going to be adding these layers of chalk. So I'm just going to start with my finger in a circular motion, and I'm just going to add in this chalk. And as I go over it over and over again, I'm focusing more of my attention in the lower right-hand side because that's where the shadow is going to be. Now occasionally I will pick up my finger, and I'll then start drawing again. We're just going to make it darker and darker and just kind of add those layers in. And now when I get it here, there's a couple things I should point out. One, I totally know I'm overshooting my lines. That's fine. I'll talk about that in a couple minutes because we're going to come back to that. But for now, I do want to adjust the opacity because we want to start making it darker and darker in some of these areas. So as you can see, I'm coming in here, and I'm adding more and more darkness to various parts of this circle to shade it in, while keeping that top fairly light. So there we go. That is the basics of how I'm going to shade this thing in. Now I know what you're thinking, which is exactly what I'm thinking, which is this is really sloppy and ugly. But this is where our eraser comes in. So let's go up here and tap on our eraser again. And I'm going to tap on it and just double check that I am on that studio pen, because this is going to give me a nice clean line when I go to erase. Because what I'm going to do is I can still see my original pencil line around the edge. So I'm going to take this eraser and I'm basically going to come around here and I'm going to trace that pencil line, and I'm going to erase my excess stuff. And this is kind of thin, so I'm going to make my my pencil quite a bit thicker so this goes faster. But I can come around this side and grab that edge. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. I'm clearly not being perfect with all of my lines here. I'm just trying to practice with this brush and show you the technique. And as you get better with these things, you will be able to basically move faster, be more accurate. But that sort of thing just takes practice, doing it over and over again. So once I get the outline in there, I can come in here. Oops, I left a dot in there, so I'm going to undo that dot and come back in with my brush. I'm going to go in here and I'm just going to erase and erase and erase. So that's all I have to do, is get rid of all of this excess stuff that is around the shaded in area. So I'm just going to erase. There we go. Almost done here. So now you can see we have a much cleaner circle. It's not perfect, but it's not bad either. And so if you want, you can decrease the size of your eraser and you can come in here and trim this around. I'm going to twist my canvas here because, again, my hand just naturally arcs like that. But yeah, we can clean up our circle that way. And as you can see, our sphere is looking kind of spherical. So next up, I want to add this shadow. I'm going to erase my little arrow because I don't need that anymore. I'm going to zoom back in, and time to think about this shadow. So in the upper right-hand corner, in order to do this, we're going to create our very first layer. So let's tap on our layer palettes. And then in the layer palettes in the upper right-hand corner, there's a plus button. I'm going to tap on that plus button, and lo and behold, I have a new layer. And this is the layer our shadow is going to be on. So I'm going to go ahead and tap off that layer. I'm going to grab my brush tool and I'm going to paint in that shadow where previously I had my little sketch. And I got my base layer in, so I'm going to reduce the size of my shadow a little bit. And then I could come in here and add some layers, and the shadow is going to get, more intense the closer you get to the object. Yeah, so that looks pretty good. So that's more or less how you do it. Obviously, this is a quick, fast, and dirty sketch, but it gives you an idea of how we go about doing these things. I'm going to tap on my layers one last time because one thing is that my shadow is actually over my sphere, and oftentimes you're going to find that you want the shadow to be sitting under it. In this drawing, it doesn't matter because the area that the shadow is sitting on is already pretty dark. But if you ever need to reorder your layers, if you tap and hold on a layer, you'll see it'll kind of increase in size a little bit, and it lets you drag it down, and when I let go, it has moved that layer underneath the other layer. So now that layer is below it, and my shadow is below it, and it keeps it more consistent. It keeps it cleaner.